Hi guys, I'm back for my 5th book talk and I'm so excited that you guys seem to like this and to want this content because it's a lot better for me than my previous solution to my problem of wanting to talk about books, which was grabbing strangers in bookstores and libraries and being like, this is what you should read, this one right here. Not everyone's comfortable with me doing that. Today's book talk is aimed mostly at the preschool to lower elementary crowd. I'm going to be talking about a picture book, but at the end of the book talk, because so many of you responded to the last book talk where I talked about supporting beginning readers, and I can tell that there's a lot of interest in that topic and also a lot of confusion, I'm going to give you guys a decoding strategy that you can do with your kids at home to help them when they're reading aloud to you and starting to get frustrated with a word. So that will be after the book talk. Today's book is so gorgeous. It is Bogo, the Fox Who Wanted Everything by Susanna Eisern, and the illustrations are by Sonia Wimmer. This book, when I opened it, I thought, oh, please let me love this story because I love the illustrations so much and I want this to be a part of my library. But it happens so often that great stories have kind of meh illustrations and books with amazing illustrations have kind of meh stories. But I really felt like this one had both. But before I start talking about, just look at how whimsical and colorful. It's so beautiful. I just adore it. If you've got artistic kids or kids that you just want to expose to great art, this is a good one. But the even better thing about this is that this helps our preschoolers with what they need to learn most, which is not ABCs, which is not their numbers, it's not their colors, it's emotional regulation. You with me? So one of the keys to teaching emotional regulation to children is teaching them about emotions and the feelings that they're going to have, normalizing feelings, and also giving name to feelings. Now, this book talks about one of those feelings that is more a higher level feeling. Once they get mad, sad, happy, excited, worried, we start getting into stickier, more uncomfortable emotions and emotions that are a little bit harder for even us to recognize that we're having it so far, like envy and humiliation, right? Greediness, right? So sometimes these can be feelings that we have that are so unfamiliar, and if we're not comfortable talking about them and giving name to them and acknowledging that they're a normal part of the human experience, they can bubble up and come out in unsavory, unhelpful ways. And so I like to talk with my kids about envy. And when we read books with characters experiencing envy, I stop and talk to them about, even if the book doesn't use the word envy, we'll stop and say, what emotion do you think this character is feeling right now? And they're like, oh, she's feeling envious. And I'm like, yes. So this is something that you can help support at home. But in this book, Bogo, the fox who wanted everything, lives in the forest and he loves watching all of the other creatures, and he starts to become aware that the other creatures in the forest have talents that are super cool. Like the bat can see in the dark, and some of the birds can fly, and the frog can jump really high. And he's thinking, these things make them special. I want to be special, so I'm going to try to do these things. And so he's an inventor, so he starts to invent contraptions that will help him do these things. They are all disasters. None of them work out. And at first, he just gets more and more discouraged. You see, he tries to make armor like an armadillo, right? But none of these work out, and he gets more and more discouraged, and he just decides, forget it, I'm not inventing anymore. And then something happens, and he becomes aware of the things that make him special in his own foxy way. His sharp ears, and his super fast legs, and his cunning, and his helpfulness, and his friends are able to help him see, you have specialness of your own. Embrace that. And I think that's such an important lesson for children when they start to struggle with envy, especially when it comes to abilities. I know my kids are in kindergarten, and they are starting to be keenly aware of who's good at what and who's top of the class and what areas, and all of that seems very important to compare people to one another. And I think it's important to stop and encourage your kids to think, what's special about me? Instead of, how can I be more like this person? Or why can't I have all of the gifts of everyone in the class? Because nobody in the class has all of the gifts of everybody in the class. Everybody has their own special things. So stopping and acknowledging what's special about your child, acknowledge them, what's special about you. That's vulnerable for us to do, right? But it's important for us to model that we can identify and be confident in the things that we know that we do well that not everybody can do. But then we can also acknowledge the things that we wish that we could do, but it's not really in our wheelhouse. Now, the second part of this lesson, though, that I love that they take it a step further, is that Bogo decides to go back to inventing, even though all of his inventions failed. And that is because he realized that inventing made him happy. And the second part of the lesson, therefore, is you don't only have to stick with the things that you're good at. Sometimes the things that you're going to do just make you happy. And it's not because you're a superstar at it. It's not because you're going to win any awards in it. It's because it's something that you like. And again, you can talk about your own experience with your kids after reading this book. I would tell them, I've recently started weightlifting, and I think it is so fun. Am I the strongest one in the gym? I'm super unathletic. I'm pretty darn weak. But weightlifting is fun for me. It makes me happy, and so I'm going to keep doing it. Not because it's my special gift, but because it's fun. So if you have a kid who loves to draw, they don't necessarily have to think, is drawing my special gift? If not, I'm going to focus on something else. You can tell them, if drawing makes you happy, draw. Follow your heart with the things that make you happy and bring you pleasure. That's an important part of being alive, is finding the things that we're good at and finding the things that make us happy. And they're not always the same thing, and that's okay. Anyway, so many great lessons in this book, in addition to the fact that, did I mention, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Okay, now, so for a decoding strategy. Now, I know that sometimes our beginning readers are reading at home with us, and this is something I've observed, even my husband struggle with, and grandparents and whatnot, is that they'll be watching a child read, and a child will come to a difficult word, and the adult says what? Like the kid starts to look at the picture, and they start guessing, unintelligently guessing, and the adult says, sound it out, right? Well, that strategy does not always work. And you have to think, when you recommend the sound it out strategy, it better be phonics knowledge that they have, which is usually short vowel sound. So the A is going to make a ah, and the O is going to make a ah. And the consonants are going to make its usual consonant sound. Not anything tricky, not anything silent, anything like that. So if you're recommending the sound it out strategy, that word better be one that they can sound out with their current phonetic knowledge. But a lot of times our kids are reading books that involve words that are more phonetically complex than what they've been taught explicitly to deal with. And we don't just want to say, well, you can only read Bob books because those are the only ones with phonics that you know, because that's inauthentic literature for them and no fun. So one of the strategies that I like to teach my kids is kind of a two-parter. One is get your mouth ready. So look at the first consonant or sound in the word and start making it with your mouth as if you know what the word is, you're starting to say it, and then read past the word and ask yourself, what would make sense there that starts with that sound? So I'm going to give you an example here. We've got this sentence right here. You really can't see it in this, but it says, Bogo ran into a pot, fell into the river, and caught a bad cold. Now, caught, C-A-U-G-H-T, that would be a challenge for most beginning readers. It's a pretty common word, but it's phonetically very difficult. And sounding that out would be a disaster for most kids. They would be trying to make hard G sounds and whatnot. So I would tell the kid, get your mouth ready. So fell into the river and a bad cold. And let them sit and think about that. Fell into the river and a bad cold. What could go there? And a lot of times they'll go, caught. And you say, yes. And then you can follow it up with, look at how that's the word caught. Sometimes A-U-G-H makes the sound all. And then you can move on. But you've taught them a strategy that they can apply ahead of time, and you've given them a little bit of phonetic knowledge. Sometimes this sound makes that. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out perfectly that they go, oh, caught. Sometimes they're going to guess wrong. I have another example to show you. So, where is it? Kat, why weren't you ready? This is ridiculous. Okay. So he used a variety. A lot of times when we have our words that are multisyllabic, 2 and 3 syllables, there are more sophisticated phonics rules of what vowels are long and what vowels are short in multisyllabic words that our kids have not really been taught yet. They're kind of trying to figure it out as they go. But a word like that is really going to give them a long pause. Even though all of the sounds are there, it's simple sounds, it's just so many syllables to figure out in one word. So again, I would say, what does it start with? V. What's up? V. Okay, get your mouth ready. He used a V of twigs and feathers. Used a V of twigs and feathers. What could make sense there? And they'll say version. And I'll say, okay. Let's put that in there and look at all of the letters in that word and see if version could be what that spells out. Do you hear a n at the end of version? Is there an n at the end of this word? Variety? No. So then you're going to go back to the drawing board. Okay, it's something that ends in a, usually when Y is at the end of the word, sometimes it makes an E sound. So it's a, he used a V-E of twigs and feathers. This may help them get it, it may not, but you're teaching them explicit strategies for breaking down challenging words other than skip it or sound it out. Because they need to have more strategies in their bank than those two. So again, as a summary, you'll tell your kid, what's the first sound? Get your mouth ready. Go back a little bit before it, keep reading, make the beginning sound, and then keep reading past it, and then take a step back and say, what would make sense there? And then once they guess it, have them go back to the letters and say, oh, do you see how these letters would make that word? Now you see it, you're connecting the meaning. Okay, let's move on now. So you've got a little reading lesson in the middle of your nightly reading that didn't take a long time, but it made the time all that much more effective and productive for both of you. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. As usual, if you have any questions, burning requests for future videos, let me know in comments below. And thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Bye, till next week.